You ever had a dream that made folks laugh at you? You ever stood for something that made people turn their backs on you? Your own people, your own family. If you have, then you understand. No, and I know most of y'all heard that story growing up. The big wooden boat, the animals 2 by 2, the flood that washed the whole world clean. That's the Sunday school version. That's the story I thought I knew my whole life. But let me tell you something. When I sat down and read how Islam talks about Noah, man, it hit me different because in the Quran, Noah, or Nuh, as they call him, ain't just some old man with a hammer and a mission. He's the voice of truth in a world that forgot what truth even was. See, Islam don't paint Noah like a hero who got lucky. It paints him like a warrior of patience, a man who preached to his people for 950 years, not 9 months, not 9 years, 9. And they laughed at him every single one of those years. Now, I don't know about you, but if I tell somebody something for a week and they don't listen, I'm done. But this man, this prophet, he stayed. He preached, he begged, he cried. He said, "My people, come back to your Lord. Stop your arrogance. Turn to the one who made you." And they mocked him, man. They called him crazy. They threw insults. They said, "Look at this fool building a ship in the desert." Now imagine this. You out there hammering your hand, sun beating on your back. You got your kids helping you, your faith holding you, and a whole crowd standing there laughing. That's Noah. That's what Islam shows us. Not just a man building a boat, but a man building faith when the world around him was drowning in disbelief. And God told him, "Build the ark under my eyes and by my guidance." Now, that right there, that line touched me deep because it reminded me that when you moving with purpose, you ain't working alone. You might not see it, but every nail you hammer in faith, every insult you ignore for the sake of God, every time you keep going when folks say you done, that's God watching you build your ark. But here's what shook me the most. In the Quran, Noah don't just ask for himself, he begs for his people. Even when they mock him, he's crying for him. He says, "My Lord, forgive my people, for they don't know." Now, that right there is love. That's the same kind of heart Jesus had when he said, "Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do." Same mercy, same message, different prophet, same God. And then came the command. The skies turned dark. The rain started to fall, and that ark, that same boat they laughed at, became the only place left to live. Now, ain't that something? The same thing the world mocked became the thing that saved. That made me stop, man. It made me think about life, 'cause ain't that what faith is? You keep building when the world laughs. You stay obedient when folks say you're crazy. And one day, that obedience becomes your protection. And let me tell you something else. Islam adds to that story. When Noah saw his own son outside that ark, drowning in disbelief, he begged God to save him. And God said, "He is not of your family, for his deeds were unrighteous." Now, that hit hard because it shows you faith ain't about blood, it's about belief. You can share DNA, but if your hearts ain't pointed toward God, you ain't walking the same path. That's a powerful truth, man. One that makes you check yourself. Who's in your ark? Who's walking with you in faith? And who's just there watching, laughing, waiting for you to give up? And when the storm finally came, it didn't matter how big your house was. It didn't matter how much gold you had. All that mattered was were you on the ark or not. And I sat there reading that, thinking, man, maybe life's the same way. Maybe the ark today is obedience, patience, and prayer. Maybe faith itself is the boat that gets you through the flood of this crazy world. That's when I realized the story of Noah in Islam ain't about wood and water. It's about faith and following. It's about doing what God told you, even when the whole world don't. I'll be real with you. I ain't never looked at that story the same again, because it made me see that the flood wasn't a punishment. It was a reset, a mercy in disguise, and sometimes God still sends floods, not to destroy you, but to wash away everything that was holding you back. You know, when I kept reading that story, I realized something that just stopped me cold. That flood, it wasn't about water. It was about truth, because when truth shows up, everything false got to drown. That's what that storm represented. God didn't just destroy a people, He exposed them. He let their arrogance rise like the waves they thought they could control. And you know what hit me hardest? Noah didn't celebrate that flood. He didn't stand on the deck shouting, "See, I told y'all." He stood there crying because mercy, real mercy, don't celebrate anybody's fall. In the Quran it says, Noah called out, "My Lord, my son is of my family, and your promise is true." And Allah replied, "O Noah, he is not of your family. His conduct is unrighteous. Do not ask of me that which you have no knowledge of." That broke him. Imagine the man who preached for 9 centuries, building this ark with his own hands, watching his own son, his blood, reject the very truth he gave his whole life for. That's not just pain, that's heartbreak at the soul level, and that's when it clicked for me. Faith ain't about saving the people you love. It's about saving yourself through obedience, hoping they follow. You can't pull nobody into the ark who don't want to get on. I learned that lesson late in life. You can't save folks who ain't ready to be saved. You can love him, pray for him, cry for him, but you can't drag him to truth. That's God's job. Now, here's what I love about how Islam tells it. When that ark finally rested on Mount Judy, Noah didn't walk out shouting, "I'll survive." He fell down and said, "My Lord, I seek refuge in you from asking what I do not know. And if you forgive me not and have mercy on me, I will be among the losers." Think about that humility. After all that, after being mocked, betrayed, seeing everything wiped out, he didn't boast, he repented. That's the difference between pride and prophecy. Pride says, "I made it." Prophecy says, "I'm nothing without the one who saved me." And man, that right there hit me deep. 'Cause look around today. Everybody trying to build their own ark, their name, their brand, their money. But they forgot, if God ain't riding with you, that boat ain't floating. Islam keeps bringing it back to this truth. You don't control the flood. You don't control the wind. You don't even control the rain. You just control your faith. That's it. I read one taps. That's like an Islamic commentary. And it said, every nail Noah struck in the ark was struck with remembrance of God, who... That line right there, I had to close the book because it means he didn't just build a boat. He built worship. He built faith with every swing of that hammer, and it made me ask myself, what am I building? Am I building success, or am I building obedience? Because one of them sinks when the storm comes, and one of them floats no matter what. Now, when the skies finally cleared and the land started drying up, Islam says, God told Noah, "Descend with peace from us and blessings upon you and upon those with you." And I sat there thinking, that's what peace feels like after the storm. Not because the rain stopped, but because your heart stopped fighting God's will. That's what a story really is, not a children's tale, not a fairy story. It's the anatomy of surrender. It's what happens when you obey, even when it hurts. It's what happens when your faith holds, even when your world falls apart. And listen, this is what Islam teaches so beautifully. Every prophet faced their own flood. Moses had Pharaoh, Abraham had the fire, Jesus had the cross, Muhammad had persecution and exile, but the pattern's the same. Faith, test, loss, victory through surrender. Now, let me bring it to us for a second, because it ain't just ancient history. We all got floods, don't we? floods of temptation, floods of doubt, floods of depression, pride, ego, addiction. Sometimes you don't even realize you drowning. You laughing like Noah's people saying, "Man, ain't no storm coming." Then life hits and suddenly you wish you had that ark, and that ark brother, that ark sister, it's your prayer, it's your repentance. It's that quiet moment when you say, "God, I need you." That's when he lifts you above the flood. You know what Islam calls Noah Sabir, the patient one. And that's a name of honor because patience ain't just waiting. It's trusting God's timing when your heart's breaking. And if there's anything this story teaches, is that sometimes God don't change your storm. He just gives you a boat strong enough to ride it out. When I finished that story, I had to put the Quran down and just sit because I realized I used to think of Noah like a survivor. But Islam made me see him as a teacher, a man who lived his faith when the whole world laughed at it, and proved that obedience will always outlast popularity. That's real power, that's legacy, that's Noah. And maybe the question we got to ask ourselves today ain't would I get on the ark. It's would I even believe it was coming, because every generation got his flood. And every believer got to decide, am I building my ark or am I building excuses? That's when I understood why Islam honors these prophets so much. It ain't about worshiping them, it's about learning from them. Noah's story is a mirror, and when you look close enough, you see yourself. Now, let me tell you something, y'all. That story of Noah ain't ancient. It ain't just sitting in some holy book gathering dust. It's right now, because if you look around, the flood is already here. It don't come from clouds no more. It come from screens. It come from noise. It come from every distraction trying to pull you away from the truth. Back then, people laughed at a man building a boat in the middle of the desert. Today, people laugh at somebody trying to stay faithful in the middle of temptation. Same thing, same mockery, same blindness. And I thought to myself one night, Steve, if Noah was alive right now, he'd be building his ark. With faith, with prayer, with discipline, not wooden nails. Because these days the rain ain't water, it's the chaos of this world. The flood is losing your purpose, and that ark, that's your connection to God. That's your salvation in a time where everything's trying to wash your soul away. You know, one line in the Quran messed me up good. Allah says, "None will be saved today except those upon whom my mercy has fallen." You know what that means. You can't sail through life on your talent, your charm, your followers, your bank account. The only thing keeping you afloat is God's mercy, and that right there, that'll humble any man, 'cause I've had days I thought I made it by my hustle, and then I looked back and saw all the storms I didn't even notice God steering me through. I remember sitting in my dressing room one night after a show, lights off, suit hanging on the rack, quiet in the air, and I opened the Quran again to the end of Surah Noah, where Noah prays, "My Lord, forgive me and my parents and whoever enters my house as a believer." And I felt that because it wasn't just a prophet talking, that was a man praying for his family, praying for his people, praying for the next generation to do better than the last. And I said to myself, that's what faith look like, Steve. It ain't fancy. It's a man on his knees asking God to have mercy on the ones he loves. You see, in Islam, Noah ain't remembered just for the flood. He's remembered for the call. 900 years he called him patient, gentle, tireless. That's what the Quran keeps repeating. His dawah, his invitation. And I thought, man, 9 centuries of rejection and he never stopped. How many of us quit after 9 days of disappointment? That's what faith is. You do your part. You build your ark. You call people to truth and you leave the rest to God. Now, let me tell you how Islam flipped my understanding of this whole story. See, in the Bible, the flood is a punishment, but in the Quran, it's also a cleansing. It's mercy disguised as wrath, because sometimes God got to wash away the noise so the truth can breathe again. And I thought, ain't that what he does in our lives too? He saying, God, I don't understand, but I trust you. And that's the real ark right there. Trust. Because if you got that, you can stand in any storm and still smile. Now, let's be honest. We living in a time where face under attack, People act like belief is outdated. They roll their eyes when you talk about God. They got science, algorithms, AI, and yet depression's higher than ever. Addiction worse than ever. Families are falling apart. You tell me who's really drowning. Maybe the ark we need today ain't made of wood. Maybe it's made of values, respect, honesty, modesty, faith. Those are your planks and the nails holding it together. That's prayer. I once asked a Muslim friend, how do you stay calm when everything goes wrong? And he smiled and said, because I know who controls the storm. That lion never left me. That's Noah in one sentence. That's Islam in one heartbeat. It ain't about escaping the flood. It's about trusting the captain. And you know, the more I learn, the more I realize every prophet's story is the same symphony, just in a different key. God keeps telling humanity the same message over and over. Return to me, stop running, stop drowning, build your ark and come home. And somehow, every time we forget, we get busy building skyscrapers instead of souls. We build networks, not character. We build careers, not prayer mats. And when the water rises, we wonder why we sink. So I'll say this, and I mean it from the heart. Every one of y'all watching this, you need to build your ark now, not later. Now, don't wait for the thunder. Don't wait till the waves start hitting. Start with your heart. Start with your prayer. Start by saying, God, I'm ready to listen. Because that right there, that's how Noah started. And maybe that's the reason his story is still told in every faith, every language, every land. Because the storm might look different, but the message never changed. God saves the ones who trust him. And I'll end on this. When the ark landed and the world was quiet again, Noah stepped out, breathed the air, and the first thing he did was thank God. He didn't ask for reward, he didn't brag, he didn't build a monument to himself. He built gratitude, and if we could all just do that, if we could end every storm with our hamdullah, thank you, Lord, then maybe we realize the ark was never just a boat. It was a reminder that no matter how deep the flood gets, faith always floats.